There's a new Pokemon game that's taking the internet by storm. It's called Pokérogue, a game based around Pokemon battling with extra roguelike elements included such as items and boss battles. This game is extremely well made, and it's clear how much effort went into its development, which only means one thing. It's extremely difficult. So difficult and sporadic that you're almost guaranteed to be reviving team members time and time again. But what if we didn't? This is my attempt to beat Pokérogue, Nuzlocke edition. These were actually my very first attempts at the game, so there was a decent learning curve. If you don't know how the game works, it's a constant wave of 200 battles. There's randomly spaced out trainer battles, boss or gym leader battles at every 10 waves, and of course the most notable opponent in the game, Ivy, my rival. She's the one who ended most of my early attempts, usually at the wave 25 battle. The main issue in these early attempts was just having a lack of defense to eat damage, but that all ended when this egg hatched. Iron Thorns would become a staple of our starter team, which evolved from Fennekin, Mudkip, and Rowlet into Torchic, Foongus, and Golett, and finally now our starter trio would be Iron Thorns, Torchic, and Rattata. Look, I only had 1 point left to spend, and 3 bodies is better than 2. And with that, we set off on attempt number 14. As far as how I decided to go about doing a Nuzlocke in a game like this, I'm not restricting my ability to catch at all. The challenge comes with the battling, because if a Pokemon in my party faints, it's dead forever, and I must find a replacement. And if you've played or watched this game at all, you know how quickly things can spiral out of control. The early battles were super simple with the very buff Iron Thorns, although Rattata did fall to Ivy in Wave 8. What a shame. We caught a Rookidee, Dewpider, Choodle, and Magikarp to fill the team up. Arriving at the previously destructive Wave 25, Dewpider was left out front to deal with Braixen, which turned into Talonflame. Dhelmise was sent out and we brought in Rookidee, who would fall to an Astonish. Weak to grass, Iron Thorns would come in and take the KO with Ice Fang, and then the win with Thunder Fang. Our first time getting past Wave 25, finally. The team was greatly boosted by Magikarp evolving into Gyarados, who would learn Waterfall and Dragon Dance shortly after. Look out to any non-electric types. This guy, he's coming for you. We did end up losing one of our starters who had evolved into Combuskin, but Alolan Marowak was a solid replacement in that hole. The team was really coming together, and we easily took down Ivy at Wave 55, probably the easiest fight against her in any of my attempts so far. We continued to build the team with additions of Dewgong and Glalie, who would both fall in Wave 80, as did Marowak. This Weavile absolutely wrecked our team. I was lucky to even still be alive as Iron Thorns came through. But the team was in shambles. If he didn't survive that Night Slash, the run was over. Machamp joined the team as we reached the Ivy battle at Wave 95. Luckily for us, Gyarados at this point was carrying the team and was able to take out Kingdra, Dhelmise, Ursaring, and Talonflame before being burned by the bird's flame body. Knowing I couldn't afford to somehow lose Gyarados, I brought in Dreadnought to finish off Delphox. Just 5 battles later, we were set for the boss battle against Conkeldurr. Our team fillers, Machoke and Girder, went down quickly. Unfortunately, Gyarados took a hefty Stone Edge and fell. This was not good for us. Iron Thorns got off a couple of Earthquakes before falling to Superpower, and Dreadnought would meet the same fate. Machamp entered as the final hope. Paralyzed and weak, he somehow still outsped and killed the boss with a low sweep. Limping out of the battle with just Machamp, it was once again time to build the team, starting with Pawmot, but it just wasn't meant to be, as both Machamp and Pawmot fell to Bellibolt, ending the run just over halfway there at Battle 102. Attempt 15, I'd bring the same starter trio along. The early game once again was a bit of a breeze. Our team consisted of Iron Thorns, Combuskin, Excadrill, Magneton, Scraggy, and Machoke. Well, that is until Chuck at Wave 50. We successfully won, but not without 3 deaths. Vikavolt and Bellibolt would join the team as we trekked forward, again beating Ivy at Wave 55 easily. We luckily pulled a Thunderstone, which would evolve Magneton into Magnezone. A handful of battles later, Gyarados would show up, and you know what that means. We find ourselves back at Ivy's level 95 battle once again, and I feel like now is the best time to talk about the AI in this game. The opponents are very intelligent. They typically will swap out a ton based on the types of your Pokemon, but sometimes it's to their own detriment. Predicting what the AI is going to do will be key in winning this run. A great example is the beginning of this battle. Gyarados was our lead and they had Quaquaval. Now, this isn't a bad matchup at all, but she decides to go into Electabuzz for the quad effective attack on our water flying type. We send in a Crunch to hit Electabuzz hard before swapping into Excadrill for the electric immunity. Knowing that she's got a flying type, I go for Rock Slide instead of Earthquake, which connects with Cramorant for super effective damage. We later read a swap into Electabuzz as we're already going for Excadrill. It's all about the mind games with this AI, and it makes this game an incredibly fun and incredibly challenging experience. Even with all the swapping and great reads, Quaquaval took out Bellibolt, and then Magnezone, and then Gyarados. Once again, we were back down to 3 Pokemon coming up on the same boss that effectively killed our team last time. Iron Thorns, Excadrill, and Machamp continue the journey to honor their fallen teammates. This time we faced Poliwrath as the boss, and although it was an intense fight, a few low sweeps saw Machamp take the victory while in the red in health. Feraligatr, Serene, and Ninetales brought the team back to a full 6 as we surpassed our previous run in battles. But soon after, we'd come up against Gardenia. Now, our team is already really weak to grass. Fingers crossed that this doesn't end the run here. Gourgeist led for the Grass Gym leader, and we had Ninetales, who was pretty underleveled as we had just caught her a few battles earlier. Trying to avoid a crit, I swapped into Iron Thorns, and Gardenia actually brought out Roserade. We would take a Petal Blizzard and return a strong Ice Fang that would do about 2/3 of his HP, but a Citrus Berry would restore a good chunk of that. We repeated the previous turn, leaving Iron Thorns with 25 HP before KOing Roserade. Leaveney would crit a Leaf Storm into Ninetales as our quad-effective Fire Blast didn't quite kill in turn 1, but it was able to take out the Grass Bug type on the second go. Now, since all trainers are on set battle mode, I had to make the tough call of sacking Ninetales in exchange for some solid damage on Tangrowth. Gosh, this is this is not looking good. I resorted to using Serena and Rapid Spin. Yeah, that's how bad this situation is. A couple of moves later, Serena would fall. Iron Thorns would deliver a super effective Ice Fang that doesn't kill. Our starter would fall to a Power Whip, and things were now looking dire. With just 3 Pokemon left, one of them poisoned, and 0 overall super effective moves left, I was ready to give up. Feraligatr would be the next sacrifice, leering Torterra a couple times before a crit Giga Drain followed by a Leaf Storm would take him out. Excadrill with Rock Slide did a decent number after the Leers, and Leaf Storm didn't do nearly as much as I expected. The next Rock Slide connected, and Torterra flinched. A final Rock Slide took him out. Outspeeding Tangrowth, Excadrill would knock out the foe with Earthquake, and one final Earthquake against Gourgeist would somehow finish off Gardenia. 07 to Ninetales, Serena, Feraligatr, and most importantly, Iron Thorns. You will be missed. Beaten and battered, Excadrill and Machamp had to refocus on, yet again, rebuilding the team, and now without their leader, Iron Thorns. We ended up catching Exploud, Probopass, Scovillain, and Altaria, and Faulkner's battle at level 140 was a breeze with Excadrill and Probopass. Emboar was caught in replace of Scovillain as we entered the next rival battle with Ivy. Exploud was able to take down Quaquaval, but not before a ton of damage. He'd have to be sacrificed as Ivy's ace, Shiny Rayquaza, entered. Probopass would force a switch into Electabuzz, prompting me to swap into Excadrill. A few Rock Slides had Cramorant and Rayquaza down into the red. Hoping for him to tank the hit, Probopass was sent back out, but he fell to an Outrage. Thanks to the AI, a swap to Excadrill starts the cycle over, killing Cramorant and Staraptor as the move caused a flinch and then KO'd on the next turn. A massive turn of events for us. As Rayquaza re-entered, I stuck with Excadrill, hoping for the best. The first Rock Slide wouldn't kill, but Rayquaza missed. However, a speed boost let Rayquaza go first, nailing Excadrill with a Air Slash that left him with 6 HP before he took the KO. We outspeed and take another kill with Earthquake, leaving only Electivire remaining, and of course, one last Earthquake finished it off, and Excadrill somehow lived to take out 4 Pokemon with just 6 HP remaining. Unreal. The awesome encounters of Heat Rotom and Palossand attempted to fill the 2 new holes we had in our hearts. Tapu Fini was a very tough boss, killing off Machamp and Palossand. We caught another Gyarados as well as Lumineon as Marlin challenged us at wave 170. Luckily, our lead was Rotom, who scares Gyarados out in favor of Carracosta, causing them to take a hefty discharge. Altaria swaps in and takes out Carracosta with a few Dragon Breaths. Another breath and a paralysis on Dracofish was massive, but not quite enough for the kill, causing our first death of the fight. A discharge from Rotom took out Jellicent before I swap into Gyarados to finish off Wailord, but this Gyarados we just caught has a horrid moveset, missing Hurricane multiple times. Lumineon ended up taking the KO with Bounce against Wailord and Dracovish, but despite the heroics, Lumineon needed to be sacked against Gyarados to ensure a clean switch to Rotom, who would one-shot the Flying Beast to finish off the Water-type Gym Leader. Abomasnow and Lapras would be our final catches of the run. It was time to make our way to the Elite Four. The first of which is Crispin, a Fire Trainer. I swapped into Gyarados, who now has a slightly better moveset thanks to a couple of Memory Mushrooms. Camerupt couldn't do much of anything to us, so we simply Dragon Danced 5 times and swept the entire fight. Next was the Steel-type trainer, Amoris. Gutra came out first, and we swapped into Gyarados, who barely survived a Dragon Pulse before taking the KO with Waterfall. Emboar came in against Caesar, prompting a swap to Empoleon into a strong Rock Smash. A couple of body slams from Lapras would take out the Penguin. Excadrill would hit Metagross and Caesar with hard Earthquakes, with the latter falling to the move. Orthworm's immunity to ground was annoying, but Rotom's Levitate came in clutch, along with his quad resistance of Steel. He took out Skarmory, and Metagross fell to our Excadrill, which meant we had 2 down and 2 to go. Lacey would bring her fairy types to the battle, leading with Togekiss. Gyarados tanked a couple of Ancient Powers before taking out the lead. Primarina missed a Hydro Pump, allowing us a free swap into Abomasnow. She did a good number on Primarina before a swap to Alcremie, who unfortunately killed our Grass Ice type. I came in with Excadrill and got jump scared by a non-fairy type, an Excadrill of her own. Luckily for us, we'd already sent out a super effective Earthquake, which gave us a huge one-shot to take the lead. He outspeeds to take out Primarina, Slowbro, Alcremie, and Hatterene, finishing off the third Elite Four member with hardly a scratch. Unfortunately, we'd enter the final battles with only 5 team members. Okay, or not. Well, I hadn't mentioned this at all, but the servers struggled mightily throughout my run. I would normally wait out the server issues to resume, sometimes having to do fights over again, but the file corruption had never happened to me. With just a handful of battles left, our Nuzlocke was over, and we never even had a chance. I was ready to just call it quits, as I had over 7 hours into this current run, but we're not going down like that. Roll it.
In 5, 4, 3, 2.
Well, that was quick. We're finally back to the Elite Four with this team. Gyarados, Primarina, Armarouge, Dedenne, Probopass, and our starter, the DNA Splice Groudon, the Dragon Ground fusion of Groudon and Duraludon. To my surprise, the Elite Four is not static, as we'd face Aaron and his bug types. Groudon took out Scizor, Vespiquen, Araquanid, Heracross, and Masquerain. Yeah, this dude is a beast. We swapped into Gyarados to take out the final Pokemon, Drapion. Ground was next up, and, well, yeah, I think we all know how this ended. And next was Flint. Houndoom did burn Gyarados to start, and I didn't want to risk a death, so after taking out the dog, Flareon, and Magmortar, I swapped into Primarina to deal with Rapidash and Infernape before the final Infernape went down to Armarouge. The final Elite Four member was Lucian, the Psychic-type trainer. Groudon took out Braviary, and Armarouge would escort Mr. Mime out. Gyarados dealt with Bahium, outsped Alakazam to take that KO, and also crunched Bronzong to death. Yet another kill from the Dark move would finish off Gallade and the final Elite Four member. That was a shockingly easy trek through the toughest trainers in the game, but there was one more battle left before we head into the Paradox Realm, the notoriously tough champion, Cynthia. She leads with Togekiss, who is super effective against our ground dragon type. Probopass tanked a Fairy Wind, and I assumed Cynthia would send out Garchomp for our quad weakness to ground. I was correct, and that also revealed that Garchomp is terrestrialized into ground only, which is great news for us. I once again assumed she'd never leave the Dragon Inn to take a Waterfall, so I opted for a Crunch, which sunk into Giratina. They sent out a Shadow Force, and I swapped into Rioludon. An Earthquake would hit Togekiss hard, and the cycle started again. Swapping into Probopass, and then Gyarados. This time she swapped into Lucario, who I hit with a Waterfall. After a hard hit from Extreme Speed, I swapped back into Probopass and misread a swap into Garchomp, missing a Discharge. A costly mistake. I swapped into Gyarados once again to avoid a Bulldoze, and Giratina was taken out with a Waterfall. Primarina came in to face Biolotic, but a couple of Hydro Pumps left her a little too vulnerable, so I switched back into Rioludon. An Earthquake would take her out, which led me to put Probopass back in, who survived with just 10 HP. Our time on this strategy was running out. Dedenne was not the play, but it led to Gyarados once again coming into an immunity to ground. A Waterfall took out Lucario, leading to Spiritomb making her first appearance. After a few swaps, I took a chance with Gyarados, hitting a few water moves to knock out Spiritomb on a shred of health. Togekiss was now a real issue, with Probopass out of commission. Armarouge was our final Mon with a resistance to Fairy, and they survived with 2 HP left. Unsure what to do, I fired off a Will-O-Wisp that missed Garchomp. A risky Waterfall from Gyarados brought Togekiss down to a third, and I had to gamble Gyarados' life again. And it paid off, outspeeding Togekiss and knocking out the Fairy type. The final Mon for Cynthia was Garchomp, who would fall to Waterfall, and somehow, someway, we defeated Cynthia with no deaths. We were teleported into the Paradox Realm, where we'd face our rival one final time. She led with Meganium, and we swapped into Armarouge and then Primarina. That was a perfect read, as it forced another swap leading to solid damage against Meganium. Armarouge hit a Flamethrower as the grass opponent charged up Solar Beam. The cycle repeated, but this time Goldengo would tank a Moonblast. Rioludon would take the Golden String Cheese out with an Earthquake, and Unfezant was next out. But our Rock Slide would easily take the KO after a flinch and a miss on previous turns. Mega Rayquaza came out, and after a couple of Dragon Claws, I was done gambling with our starter's life. I swapped into Primarina, which brought out Meganium, as a Moonblast finally killed off the Grass type. Throw would also go down to the Fairy move, as did Mega Rayquaza. One last quad-effective Moonblast finished off Ivy. That's a real sigh of relief there, as we went deathless again, and would go into the final fight with all 6 Pokemon. This was it, the final battle against the gargantuan poison dragon beast, Eternatus. We lead with Probopass, starting out the fight with a Thunder Wave. He tanked 4 Eterna Beams and returned a handful of Power Gems to single-handedly activate the final wave of the fight against Eternatus' Emax form. As Gyarados was drug out, I decided to continuously Dragon Dance with our Sea Serpent as Probopass hit a Thunder Wave before falling to a Dynamax Cannon to the chest. He's probably the reason we even have a shot at the win, so it's unfortunate he couldn't live to see it. Primarina entered as she had 6 Moonblasts to use on the Giant Dragon, but just 3 when you factor in the opponent's pressure ability. Probopass's Dying Thunder Wave gave us a couple of turns of paralysis as Gyarados reached full strength, plus 6 speed and attack. Primarina was out of Moonblast PP and had to resort to Bubble Beam. Slowly, we chipped away. Some questionable AI decision making allowed Primarina and Gyarados to survive way longer than I expected, as the final boss was down to 20% health by the time a Dynamax Cannon killed off our speedy fish. Knowing his glaring weakness to Eternatus's Dragon move, Growlithe would try and finish the job before our opponent could. He would send off an Earthquake which killed the wrong Pokemon, but not Eternatus. But Probopass's final move comes in clutch, paralyzing the opponent, allowing Growlithe to send off one final Earthquake to take down the final boss and win one of the toughest Pokemon Nuzlockes you'll ever see. Man, that was an absolute blast. I've never played a roguelike game before, but I can certainly see why this game has taken off so much. There were times that I felt like this run would be impossible, but with so much strategy and, admittedly, luck combined, we somehow finished off this run successfully. I'd like to shout out this comment for suggesting Pokérogue to me, as I had never heard of it and it was a really fun experience for me. If you have a suggestion for a future video, let me know in the comments. I'd love to check them out and maybe feature those ideas here on the channel. Lastly, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for watching. This channel has taken off way quicker than I ever expected, and I truly appreciate all the support. Well, that was Pokérogue, Nuzlocke Edition. And this is Hershey, signing off once more. See you soon, and thanks for watching.